Morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Hardwood Nation crew back at you again with our latest episode of the Hardwood Nation podcast. What's going on, Bryce?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, my man. Hey, so we had a couple of weeks off, and some stuff dropped. I know me and you were tweeting back and forth and texting back and forth about the story that I told you was going to come out about a month ago, and it dropped this week. Um, so the Phoenix Suns are under one of the NBA teams that are actually under investigation right now, currently for wrongdoings within the organizational structure, apart from the basketball product. Off the top of your head, how surprised are you that the NBA has taken the next step in going in there and seeing exactly what's going on in Phoenix?
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all because it seems like where there's smoke, there's fire, they say, and it seems like there's a lot of smoke trying to get covered up over there. Numerous, I guess, reports have come out, and it seems like the deeper you dig in it, seems like there is a like just a tone at the whole company that kind of suppressed a lot of information getting out. So where it seems like they might have had a lot of problems, I don't think the NBA had any other recourse but to investigate. Um, I'm not surprised at all. Um, and depending on this guy's been there for a while, just the sheer scope of really what's happened there. I think it's undeniable that the NBA has to take a deeper look at it. So I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, Robert Sarver has been the owner of the Suns for 17 years. He took over for Jerry Colangelo, who stepped down, that time ago. There's always been whispers as far as him not being a great guy to work for or a good guy to get along with, pretty much. And that's part, of course, for a lot of businessmen like that. They're aggressive, they're dominant. That's how they got to where they are. So I understand that. But there comes a point where you have to pivot and be more caring and sensible to the people who work under you and who for a time looked up to you, because there's people who've done well in life that we look up to, and we hope that they're not dicks in real life, but reality is that most of them are. The thing with Sarver is that there's just so much of it that was going on. So there was a 5,000 word report dropped by Baxter Holmes of ESPN this week, that detailed a lot of this. Baxter interviewed over 70 former and current Suns employees and also co-owners, or let's just say minority owners who have a smaller stake in the franchise for this report. So some sources were named, some sources were not named. It looks like Sauber, who was on the defense, had an issue with the amount of people who wasn't named. But I mean, if you're still working for that organization, would you put your name on a piece like this, Price?
Yeah, no.
No, right. So yeah, it just makes
And
sense.
that's
Like,
the problem too. If like the whole tone of the company or the organization is to like kind of keep these things quiet and perpetuate it throughout, from top to bottom inside the corporation. It's
mm,
like you're gonna have a lot of people who don't speak up at all, and then let alone that want to have their names out there, because then you're gone
correct.
until everything's over with. So it's always a problem. So no, it's not surprising to me. Clearly he's upset,
Well, yeah,
but I mean, you can only keep the cap on something like that for so long. So
right. And we're just going to retrace some steps here. Um, Once it was leaked that the report was coming out, it caught me off guard. I told you about it. It caught you off guard just because the NBA and ESPN is a huge television partner. So I'm like, okay, does the story need to come out? Yes, but I'm surprised that ESPN is the one putting the story out. So I was shocked with that. I was also shocked that Robert Sarver immediately from the rumor put out a statement saying, hey, whatever you read is not true. None of it's true. Now, after reading the piece, I do know now that they actually sent the piece to Robert Sarver and his lawyers, and therefore he had a chance to actually be in the piece and say, this event didn't happen. this event happened this way, but not the way that it's being reported. So they did actually work with him on it, which I thought was genuine because, of course, he denied absolutely everything. But there's some connections in the piece that has to be made. The first two paragraphs of the piece details a conversation that he had with former head coach Earl Watson, where the N word was brought up in the piece. N word, of course, politically correctness. We say N word. I'm just gonna say what it was. So the conversation was Draymond Green was on the court saying nigger to another player, and Robert Sarver was kind of goating the head coach and saying, "Hey, how come I can't say it? If black people can use the N word and say nigger, then I should be able to use the N word and say nigger." I will tell you, in my 40 years of living, I've had conversations with non African American people who have said that to me. I've heard people say that and ask me that. So I made a connection there. I'm like, well, could he have said it? Yes. Could he have not said it? No. But in my personal experience, I've had people close to me ask me this.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's something that doesn't have to be asked. And the
Hmm.
problem is with guys like that is they're not used to being told no.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this isn't something that they should be told no on. This is just something in general that they know that they're excluded from.
Hmm.
And that probably bothers them.
Mm.
I'm not saying he's not racist or what misogynistic. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm
Hmm.
just saying guys like that, they feel like their reach is, there's no end to it.
Got
And
it.
so him asking about it, I feel like is kind of out of bounds anyways. I don't feel like it's our it's like our right to ask about. Yes, we have freedom of speech and this and that, but it's out of respect of the nature of what we're speaking on to begin with. It's
Hmm.
not our right to decide. We shouldn't even ask because you shouldn't want to say it. I get in the context that he's implying that he should be able to say it. It's like but if he's implying he's like, oh, I want to say in like a buddy type of way, like not even if that's how he's trying to think about it, it's just not ours to say. That's to me, it's like don't even ask. Don't even want to say it to ask, even in that interpretation of it. Like if you're such a good friend with someone and they call you that, that's fine. Don't fucking say it. Like, don't want to say it. That's my thing. That's just how I've always thought about it. It's just not something for me, and that's fine. Like,
Right.
but
To,
some
to,
people have a problem with just the idea of someone else saying, "Well, you shouldn't say that."
mhm.
It's like, well, I want to say whatever I want to say, no matter what it is, and that's just the type of person it seems like some of these guys are in terms of being competitive and trying to be the boss, and
Right. Right.
that doesn't make it right. But it doesn't surprise me that guys like that are the types that want to bring it up or say it, is
A,
because they feel like they get away with anything.
a lot of things in the story is just that what you mentioned. So you definitely hit the nail on the head. It was about a billionaire who wants to have all the power in the world, who has access to a lot of power, but there's still certain segments that he can't get in, that his money will not allow him to get in, and that's one of them. There's a couple of more points I want to hit, and then I'm going to connect it all before we move on. The second thing that disturbed me was when, and let me preface by saying this. As a kid, I was a Phoenix Suns fan because Charles Barkley was there. I've talked about this numerous of times. I know all the great players in that franchise. There was a player named Dan Marley, Thunder Dan Marley, who actually played for the Suns and the Heat, ironically. He was a long time assistant coach for the Suns, and he got passed over for the head coaching job when they chose Earl Watson. It did turn some heads a little bit. Forgive me, they chose Lindsey Hunter. It turned some heads a little bit because Dan had been there so long as an assistant coach, had coached the summer league. Technically speaking, he was next in line to be the head coach. So it was detailed again in the story that Sarver told one of the team executives that the reason why he didn't go with Dan Marley as the head coach is because these niggers need a nigger coach. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way because I know some people feel like they can't relate to other cultures and other races. But again, we have a connection from using the N word with Earl Watson and now using the N word here to say that a traditional white NBA coach couldn't relate to today's current players. I have an issue with that. Greg
Mhm.
Popovich is still relevant in this league. Mike D'Antoni, despite his shortcomings, is still relevant in this league. We've had tons of great coaches, older coaches, who've had younger, predominantly African American teams who's done well. I mean, Pat Riley, I mean, he's God to me. So, how do you feel about that? Do you think necessarily that you need a black coach to coach black players in the NBA?
Well, I mean, absolutely not. I mean, come on. I'm sure you knew my answer to that. I mean, that's just that shows the narrow-mindedness of this guy
Hmm.
and his character and his being out of touch with everything. Um,
Hmm.
so no, absolutely not. I agree with that, of course. And uh, if you know what you're talking about and you put in the time and the work and you do your job well, the respect comes with it. It doesn't matter the color, the race, or
Right,
the gender.
right,
That doesn't matter.
right.
And the professionals understand that. So no, that's just an outrageous remark. So
Hmm.
from a guy, a lot of scrutiny for a lot of things. So that doesn't surprise me any more than the rest of the allegations.
Well, also there was allegations from women who worked in within the organization who had direct contact and also indirect contact with Sarver. But I'm just going to focus on the contact with Sarver, where he would make sexual jokes, sexual innuendos around females in the organization that made them feel very uncomfortable. But another thing that stood out was when he would go to female employees and say, "I own you," and they would be like, "What?" He'd be like, "I own you. You belong to me." And the connection that I make with that to the earlier stories is if a man in that position can go to a woman and say, I own you and you're my property, that's very similar to how a certain segment of people were treated 300 to 400 years ago as far as property, right? So I can make that connection and say, okay, if he's saying this to women within the organization and he's being accused of saying things about African Americans, I can make that connection and say it's not too far off to think that we might be on to something here. Like you said earlier, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there seems to be a lot of smoke here. Do you see a connection there? A possible connection there?
Well, yeah, just in general, this is what this guy, that's how he sees everybody.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's just the type of person he is. You know, everybody's underneath him. And he owns the corporation, so in his eyes, he owns everybody.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
I
not
know
surprised.
I know some people had a problem with the term owner a few years ago. It really didn't bother me because I know that no owner technically owns an NBA player, but for some people it did bother them. But I think these transgressions that he's made are even worse than Donald Sterling's. But they were able to catch Donald Sterling on audio tape, and they don't have audio tape as we know of right now of this guy. But I fully well believe that he deserves to have his team taken from him, and there would have to be a vote amongst the other owners, and there would have to have 3/4 of the vote to remove him. So we'll see what happens. This was absolutely the biggest news story of the week, and for anyone who hasn't read it, please take the 15 to 20 minutes, go to ESPN, search Baxter Holmes' article, and read it because it was fantastic. It was a masterpiece. Yesterday, moving right along. Yesterday, we got hit with another NBA investigation. Did you see this before I sent it to you, or was that the first time you heard about it?
Um, I think that was the first I had heard about it.
Okay, so yesterday morning it was announced that the Portland Trail Blazers are going to launch an investigation into team president Neil O'Shea for creating a hostile and disruptive work environment within the front office. So that's two in 1 week, Bryce. What are the odds of that?
Um, I don't know what the odds are, but we're going to continue to hear things about teams and executives until they weed out the majority of these people at all these organizations. And it's going to take a while because a lot of people that get to be in power, whether it's the top or mid tier, it's
Hmm.
people taking advantage of that power, no matter what, in any position. It just wrong person, wrong spot. They're going to take advantage of people. That's
Yeah,
that's all.
it's going to be a snowball effect. Now, I will say that they're speaking of a hostile work environment. There's been no allegations of yet of racism and misogyny. Just maybe he has a bad attitude, or maybe he's a dick. Who knows? But they're launching an investigation in that. So with both of these stories, we will keep you guys up to date on it. So on to lighter news. Let's talk about Ben Simmons, your favorite person in
I
the
can't believe
NBA.
I can't believe Philly's still forcing us to talk about this.
The last time we left you guys, we heard that the Sixers could not find Ben Simmons because of mental health issues that he cited for not being a part of the team. Well, in the 2 weeks since that time, Ben Simmons has not used the Sixers' resources for mental health. There's a report that he went to the Players Association and he's used their resources. And because of that, the Sixers are now able to fine him again for missing games. So here we go again. If you're Ben Simmons, should you have taken the Sixers route as far as counseling, or the route that you took going to the Players Association to seek help?
Well, if you're trying to do what Ben Simmons is trying to do and find every loophole to not play, then it makes sense. But then every time they find a way to also charge him, he's like, well, that didn't work because I'm not going to lose money. Because we know that's why he showed up at camp to begin
Right,
with, is they find.
right.
So now that he can't use the mental health excuse without going to their team doctors, who are, in his eyes, probably going to be biased
Hmm.
and not work with him in finding a way to find an excuse to not play, then that probably hinders what he was planning on doing, I guess. But every time he has a plan and they find him, he usually like just backtracks pretty quick. So like it's a circus. It's a circus, and I'm over it. I don't want to talk about Ben Simmons on Philly anymore because I I get it. A team doesn't want to do what he wants them to do, and maybe they can't get the value how they find like in their eyes how much they should get back for him. But it's just such a distraction. And Philly's 8-2, so as long as they keep winning, they're just gonna put up with this. And it's ridiculous. I can't believe that this is what's going on.
Well, here's what we would want to happen versus what is happening. We would want the Sixers to send him home so we wouldn't have to hear about him. But if they send him home, then they have to pay him. So because of that,
Yes.
we have to hear about it.
And they're clearly trying to not pay him.
Because the easiest route, there's two easy routes. He deals with it and comes and plays well, or they shut him down for the season. Any one of those two options will result in him being paid. I'm with the Sixers, and I'm always pro player. God knows that. But here I'm with the Sixers. What the fuck do you do, right? You can't shut him down because you got to pay him. This is the first year of his deal. You don't want to pay him if he's not there. So I get it. So I'm totally with the Sixers on this. Bryce, I love you. You're my brother, but you're going to be hearing about this for the duration of the season. I'm just throwing that at you. Unless they trade him, unless they bite the bullet and they trade him for a weak ass package, because at this point, that's all they're going to get right now.
Do you think with the recent news that the new New York City mayor electee will not be changing the um, vaccine mandate? Do you think Brooklyn tries to trade Kyrie more now than
It's
before, or do you think they keep sitting with him?
I think you have to move him. So as we detailed a couple of weeks ago, that trade makes the most sense. Now Ben Simmons apparently had a home in New Jersey, in the New Jersey area, and just sold it. I don't know why. He might be there soon, but that trade makes the most sense. So hopefully it gets done, and then we'll have both players back on the court because that's what the fans want to see in the long run.
Mhm.
So and
Yeah. And,
both teams will gain.
and even if Brooklyn didn't trade Kyrie, I mean, Brooklyn isn't looking great this season either. And I mean, a lot of that has to do with James Harden's troubles with the new rule change, but
Hmm.
still, Brooklyn looks like they'd be in trouble, some trouble, regardless. So I don't know why there's not more urgency from them to, I don't know, upgrade. I guess
Yeah,
because at this point, wouldn't anything be an upgrade from not having him on the court at all?
yeah. Anything would be an upgrade. Couple of things that I do want to touch on that's kind of related to this before we move to the next topic because we had it on the slate for last week, but we had it to see come up. The rule change, but also the basketball change. The rule change, you just have to deal with that. You have to play through. You have to deal with that. I don't know if you quite remember the last time they changed the ball. That was a big debacle. Um, the entirety of the league complained and were like, no, this ain't it. The Players Association got involved and they actually reverted back to the regular Spalding ball. They went to like a microfiber ball and the players
Mm-hmm.
hated it. It was cutting their hands. It was trash. It was absolute trash. So I know there's a lot of attention on the rule change this year, but I also think that some of the shooting struggles could be the actual new ball that they're playing with this year too.
Has Dame come out and said anything about the ball? Because I mean, he's been having some struggles as well, and to
I've
me, he wasn't
heard.
like
Go ahead.
a guy that took advantage of those old rules as much as some. So
Right,
like,
right.
I
Dame this is a little strange, and I think last night he had a good game, but the night before he had a horrible game. The only player
what
that I've
like
seen,
points or something.
yeah, I think he had, like, yeah, it was bad. The only player that I've heard right now come out about the ball has been Paul George. I haven't heard anyone else come out about the ball, but I think everyone's pointing to this rule change because it's the sexy story. But I actually think it's a little bit of both, the ball change plus the rule change. So I think it's a little bit of both because there's shooting is down across the league. Shooting is absolutely down. So they might have to look. They might have to look into that because by mid-season the last time, and I can't remember what year it was, maybe 2003 or four. By mid-season, they had reverted back to their old ball. They're like, we can't deal with this. We cannot deal with this. So that could be some of Harden's struggles as well. So speaking of Sixers, speaking of Brooklyn, the East. I'm going to read to you the playoff teams, so the top six teams, and then the four teams that are in the playoffs as they currently are. Then we're going to move to the West. So right now, as you mentioned, Philly's 8-2. They've actually won six straight games. They're leading the East right now. The number two team is the Miami Heat. The number three team, which we saw this coming, was the Chicago Bulls. Then you have Brooklyn. Then you have Washington, which I'm going to toot my horn all day on. And then rounding out the top six automatic playoff teams are New York Knicks. So before I get into the play-in, how do you feel about the top six playoff locks right now in the Eastern Conference?
I'm a little surprised that Milwaukee's not up there, and I knew the Bulls would be good. I didn't know how good.
Hmm.
I'm a little surprised that they're that good. They
Hmm.
have been this good. Because I just thought it would at least take a little time. But they came out of the gate on fire. So I guess the biggest surprise for me is just Milwaukee having some issues, but I know they've had some health issues as well. Um, so yeah, I guess that would be the biggest surprise. Philly being able to still pull off 8-2 is kind of a surprise, but I mean, Embiid has only not played one game. He's looked pretty solid this season, and so I'm happy for Philly to be playing well. I'm happy for Embiid, and I'm a little surprised at Brooklyn a little bit, um, and Milwaukee, I guess.
Got it.
What do
So
you see, guys?
we're gonna hold our thoughts on Milwaukee. Hold on. So in the top six, I'm surprised right now that the
Oh,
Wizards are,
Washington.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Wizards are in there. Now, I did pick the Wizards to make the playoffs because I don't care what anyone says. They won the Westbrook trade. They absolutely did. They got three fantastic players for one, pretty much, in Harrell, KCP, and Kyle Kuzma, who's averaging a double double. And even Harrell has been playing fantastic for the Wizards. So they absolutely won that trade. I didn't think they would be five. I would put them in the play in right now if I had to choose where they were last year, actually. But I'm happy that they're there because that makes my prediction look good. And then Chicago makes your prediction look good. Now, for the play in tournament, there is a surprise there, even more surprising than Milwaukee. So for if the play-in tournament started today, you would have the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Toronto Raptors, Charlotte Hornets, and Milwaukee Bucks. So
Hmm.
those are your next four teams. Any surprises down there? I know you mentioned Milwaukee.
Well, yeah, I just thought, well, Milwaukee has had issues, like health issues, like I said, having everybody on the court at the same time. So I guess that, but I mean, I didn't think Cleveland or Toronto would be too great. Charlotte, yeah, I thought they would be right there. That one makes sense to me. Washington playing as good as they are, and Toronto and Cleveland playing as well as they are.
Right.
But
Cleveland's been very competitive. Very competitive.
yes, yes, they have.
Mhm.
It's a little odd that those guys are hustling over there. That's the only reason for it. It's still early on in the season, but some of the teams that we thought kind of be into that mid to late round playoff spots, some of them have been having issues. The East is a mess right now. Like it's just all over the place. Brooklyn kind of throws a wrench into it by not being as dominant as we thought. Milwaukee having some issues. It leaves spots open, and so you're seeing teams like Washington, Cleveland, Toronto, and Charlotte, and they're thriving kind of in the madness. So it's going to be the East is always a dogfight in that like mid to late round or mid to late round spots. So I'm sure it'll come down to the wire again at the end of the season to see who really makes that play-in tournament.
Mhm. Kevin Love has been out for health and safety protocols, but I actually believe this is going to be more of an indefinite thing. So even once he's out of the health and safety protocols, I believe they're just going to shut him down for the season until they find a suitor for him because they've been playing this well without him. So it's just like, okay, we don't need you. Let's just cut you and then you can go to a contender. So I think that's how that's going to be resolved because Kevin Love went down last week. The Cavaliers have went off and won three straight games. So I mean, hey, kudos to them. I do looking at this. My final thoughts on the Eastern Conference right now. I if I had to guess, I would have flip flopped Charlotte and Washington because Charlotte did start off strong, but they've lost three straight games. I would have flip flopped those two. So I'm a little surprised that at this moment Charlotte is in the play in, but at season's end they'll be right there with everyone else. So now let's go to the Western Conference. Again, I'm going to read you the top six, the playoff locks, and then we're going to go into the play-in. So number one at 7-1 in the Golden State Warriors. Number two are the Utah Jazz. They're 7-2. Number three, the Dallas Mavericks, and we're going to deep dive into Utah and Dallas shortly. Number four, the Phoenix Suns, 5-3. Number five, Memphis, 5-4, and then number six, Denver, 5-4. So out west, do you see any surprises in the top six?
Uh, I guess the biggest surprise to me at being just number one would be Golden State, but after the way they kind of ended the season last year, um,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like crazy, but I didn't think they would be super like dominant, be number one, but it's still early. There were big surprises there. Thought the Lakers would be in the mix, kind of, but we knew this experiment would take some time to really figure out, and they've just been okay so far, and they've had LeBron miss some time, which they're gonna have guys in and out all year. So
Yeah,
um,
he's missed a week. I think he's going to
yeah,
miss some of next week too. So
nothing too surprising so far in the West. I would just probably mix those teams up a little bit if I had to have guessed where they were going to be at. But a lot of those teams, like, kind of expected them to be there based on last year.
Well, Memphis shouldn't have been there based on last year, but Memphis is the biggest surprise.
No, not
Right.
Memphis. That's
Huh?
the biggest surprise.
Yeah, Memphis is definitely the biggest surprise. Now, as far as the play in, we got a couple of surprises there, but you mentioned one of them. So the play in, we have Sacramento, the Portland Trailblazers, the Los Angeles Clippers, and then the Los Angeles Lakers round up the bottom four for the play in tournament. Can you imagine if the playoffs started today, the Clippers and the Lakers playing to play into the playoffs?
Hmm.
Could you even imagine that?
Or having to play. I
Yeah,
can't believe Sacramento's there.
yeah. So Sacramento's there. Yeah, they just like Cleveland, they've been really competitive. Any surprises from those bottom four
And
teams?
just like Cleveland, sorry, their centers have been playing very well.
Yeah. So I
Um, I guess the Clippers. I don't know really. None of them are too surprising, other than Sacramento, I guess.
mhm.
Portland. I didn't really know where to place Portland this year. Just more middle of the pack somewhere, and they're falling more towards the bottom of the middle of the pack. So
I think
Sacramento's
Portland.
the biggest.
Yeah, I think Portland may fall out altogether. I just don't see it. They've won two straight games, but I don't see them withstanding it. There's going to be a lot of losing in Portland this year. Ironically, the Clippers, they got off to a rough start. They've won three straight games, so they're kind of riding the ship. And then the Lakers have been an absolute disaster since LeBron James went down, which just goes to show again how impactful and how important he is to that team. When he's there, it's like a smooth oil machine. When he's gone, they're erratic and all over the place. And even Westbrook's had a horrible week this week adjusting. And then Anthony Davis is going down now, so we don't know how long he's going to be down. Not sure if you heard about that, but he's having abdominal issues as well. So they're they're still my pick. I'm not changing my mind. It's just going to take them a little longer. One thing I want to talk about, I sent you the video of the Luka Doncic game-winning shot last night. I watched the end of the game, the last quarter of that game. I don't think I've ever seen a filthier step back three to win the game in my life. How filthy was that shot?
It was pretty nice. I
That
mean,
was-
it looked like he had barely any room to operate to begin with,
Dude.
and but that's why that he's carries the clout in the league the way he does now. Like, he's done this for 2 to 3 seasons now, showing that he doesn't shy away from these moments. He can dominate, and I mean, I'd love to see him come in to
Mhm.
the season maybe in the best shape you've ever seen him in his
Yeah,
life, but
yeah,
unfortunately, that's not the case.
yeah, no.
And if he keeps getting games like this, and Dallas keeps being successful, then it's going to be hard to say, "Hey, I guess you should come in leaner or whatever." If he keeps winning, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, that was just nasty.
Yeah,
And there's nothing. What else are you going to do to defend the guy? I mean,
right. The
other than
defense was
foul
great.
him. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
well, I
defense was
mean,
fantastic.
he just nailed a ridiculous shot, and he's gonna keep hitting those types of shots. He doesn't shy away from the moment. He wants it, and he believes he's gonna hit it. I don't know, it's impressive.
There's another game that I watched yesterday that I want to touch on because these two teams battled hard last night. The Miami Heat hosted the Utah Jazz, and it felt like a playoff game. They were throwing haymakers at each other. The Heat pulled away, went up by 18, and then Utah went on this incredible run, ironically led by Hassan Whiteside, of all people, in Miami. Um, Donovan Mitchell almost dropped a 40 piece. Miami survived it, but as far as a potential finals preview, just looking at how they played each other last night, that would be a fun little series if we ever saw it. Um, what do you think are Utah's chances to finally come out of the West? Because Conley played well, Mitchell always plays great. Gobert, I'm not a fan, but hey, he does his thing. What do you think about Utah?
Um, I feel like with the way the last few years have went, and some of the picks for this season not exactly panning out so far the way that people thought. Brooklyn, LA, which it could be like, where Phoenix made it through last year, just a
Mhm.
team getting hot at the right time and staying healthy at the right time. There's no reason not to think Utah can be there. Um, and to see the team basketball dynamics that Utah versus the Heat would be, yeah, it'd be a super exciting series. And for the Utah team not having that kind of, or not having been to the finals in so long,
Right.
you're getting the best of teams. There, look, the people that get upset that there's not a big name team or big name players in the finals, it, it's like they still don't like watching just regular basketball or
Right.
something. It's
Right.
uh,
Right.
they're there for a reason. They're there because they're some of the best teams in the league. A 7-game series against the other best teams in the league, yeah, I'm there for it all the time because it's going to be the best basketball you're going to see all season.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what I want to see. My prediction be damned. I just want the best teams to be there, and we're just making guesses at the beginning of the season. I don't care if I'm wrong. I just want to see the best basketball. Period. I want to see everybody healthy playing the best basketball.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's two teams I don't care about. I just want to see that. So, if that's a finals preview, then we're all in for a treat. I saw Kyle Lowry had a triple double. He's really steadied that offense for the Heat, and Utah having Mike Conley there.
Mhm.
To use the weapons that they have. Um, those two would battle every game, and I
Yeah.
would I would love just to see that battle. That's just one piece of the puzzle. So, um, no, Utah is going to be there if they're healthy. They're going to be a deep playoff team, and they've flirted with that the last few seasons. They've been tough. Mike Conley's been there a lot. Gobert is such a big presence. Yeah, I'd be all about that series.
Look, watching Conley and Lowry battle last night was a fucking clinic. Anyone who loves the game of basketball would have smiled watching that. If Gobert had any hint of being an offensive player, Utah would be the class of the NBA. He just cannot create his own shot, so they have to set him up constantly. But if you could just dump him the ball and say, "Hey, go get us 20 points a night," oh God, Utah would be tough to deal with. They're already tough now. Um, but and there were chances last night. Gobert when he had smaller guys on him and he freaked out. He couldn't do shit. It's sad, but his field goal percentage is high, but he catches a lot of lobs. I'll put it like that. He catches
That's
a lot
fine.
of lobs.
Let him go up and get them.
Look, because believe it or not, like I said, when they went on their run, Hassan Whiteside was in the game. He does have a low post game, and he was doing damage to the Heat last night, which, like I said, was ironic because we were booing him every time he touched the ball. So,
That's
any say what?
that's why he went enough. Y'all
Yeah,
booed him.
yeah. Gobert was on the bench. I think Utah went on like a 16-0 run to close the game, and then it got tough, and then you had the foul game. But Jimmy was making his free throws, so we was able to pull it out. Any last thoughts before we wrap up this week?
No, no, just glad basketball is back in full swing and can't wait to see more of it. Just happy. No complaints right now.
I have one thing to say to the city of Orlando: be patient, be thoughtful, and be appreciative, because the young team will blossom. It's just gonna take 2 to 3 years, so just calm down. It's gonna be okay. I've been there. The Orlando Magic will be fine. I just want to say that to our Magic listeners out there who panic and are suicidal after every game.
Well, I appreciate you being unbiased and giving me your true opinion. And the Magic fans who panic, well, they're just ready to win. We'll be okay. Um, we'll be fine. We'll see. We all can't do nothing about those jerseys you got this season, so I don't know what to tell you
I mean that's
about
fine. That's fine. But I
that.
fully expect you guys to cheer us on as we make our deep run into the playoffs. So that's fine. That's fine.
Sounds
On
good.
that on that note, we're gonna see you guys later.